2011. I'm in my early 50s and I'm running a data visualization center at a state university, a place where arrogance and egos typically run the day, as is the case with faculty, and I'm no exception. I spend a lot of time traveling around the country, both in the United States and abroad, and it's an amazing experience. But my intense enthusiasm and my sense of certainty kind of serve as a mask for me being a bully and at times an arrogant ass. One morning, I wake up and I hear this ringing sound in my ear. And over several months, it turns into a screaming roar that only I can hear. Have you ever heard of a whistling tea kettle when it's boiling? Well, that's what it sounds like inside my head. It's driving me crazy. My wife and 4 kids are trying to be supportive, but I really make things difficult. Have you all heard about that, the artist Vincent van Gogh? Well, he actually cut off his ear because he suffered the same madness that I'm suffering now. It's that bad. So I'm dealing and I'm struggling with this, I don't know what to do. But I do know that this has got to end somehow, but it's just, I don't see an ending anytime soon. So I'm faced with anger, despair, anxiety, dread. It rules the day in and day out with the screaming roar. And it's that bad. It's really that bad. So I go to the doctor, and after a number of tests, he says, Chris, you have Meniere's syndrome, and you're going rapidly deaf. You only have one ear left because you lost your hearing many years ago in the other ear, so now you're going to be profoundly deaf. And I think, oh crap, I'm really going to be disabled now. I'm 2 years old when I lose hearing in my left ear due to German measles, and it has nothing to do with living in Germany. I'm raised as an army brat, traveling all the time. I move 15 times, live in 19 different homes, and go to 11 schools, K through 12. Constant change. It actually is my only constant. Change all the time is what I live with, and it was my normal. But I felt that very little was under my control. When I'd be at the playground and kids would call my name, I didn't know what direction that sound was coming from because I could only hear out of one ear. I could not tell direction. So what I tended to do is I would turn around, and I would look for who called my name. Well, apparently the kids thought this was really amusing, so they would laugh and make a game of it. Such is the way with kids around the world. Over time I got over my awkwardness, and I really built up my ability to read lips and body language. I developed a thick skin and a silver tongue, all part of being a chameleon, surviving and trying to fit in. I wanted to travel like my dad, travel all over the world. So what I did is I went to, and I am at, Texas A&M University. And I'm joining the Corps of Cadets, which is a military organization that is not your typical ROTC program. The Corps of Cadets is much more intense, and I love it. Between my junior and senior year, I go to basic training at Fort Riley. And there I need to take, as part of the intake process, a full medical and a hearing test. After the tests are done, the doctor says to me, son, you can't hear worth a damn. Which really means I'm not eligible to serve in the military. And again, I'm thinking, well, crap, what do I do now? After college, I'm still hell-bent on traveling the world, so I apply for the Peace Corps. And it's an amazing thing that I want to do, just go travel overseas, be in the Peace Corps. But I needed to do something first as part of that application process. So I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and I need to take a medical, which includes, this time, a whisper test. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. The doctor hides his face behind a clipboard. He mumbles something or other. He tilts his head, he raises his eyebrows, he looks at me, and I'm thinking, bingo, he's asking me a question. So I reply, yes, definitely. To this day, I have no idea what he said. But I do know I passed that whisper test, and I got into the Peace Corps. Well, over the next 30 years, I was doing very well adapting with my hearing loss. But now, here I am, in 2011, that screaming roar would never end. And I felt like I was fraying at the seams of sanity. Again, it was that bad. I would, after a long day at work, many evenings retreat to the den. I would turn on the TV, turn off the sound, turn on the closed captions, and I would try to dull that roar by drinking a glass or 3 of wine every night almost. It was tough. So I'd sit there and I would sulk about how my life is unraveling. But then, good news. The doctor says I'm a candidate for a cochlear implant. And that is a hearing device. It's a device that will keep me in the hearing world. And I said, that's fantastic. And he said, there's bad news. He said, as part of the operation, I need to sever the nerve in your remaining good ear to complete the operation. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, in order to remain in the hearing world, I'm going to be completely deaf. It's wild. So after the operation, which was a great success, the first thing I notice is there's no screaming roar. I'm completely deaf. I need to let my head heal for about a month before they can turn on that implant. And that month period was, in many ways, to me, called the silent pause. It was during that silent pause before they activated that implant that I gradually became more aware. It was an awakening for me. It was where acceptance was replacing irritability. And all that churning turmoil, that mud in my mind was starting to settle down, and I was starting to think more clearly. You know, when you lose your hearing, and that silence is profound. Now that there's no ringing sound in my ear, that very silence is in its own way rather deafening. And it's really amazing that at night, when I would take my implant off, because you can't sleep with your cochlear implant, you need to take it off. Imagine in the utter darkness and utter silence, it's like being in a deprivation chamber. And it's amazing. Because most nights I would just fall to sleep immediately. Within 30 seconds, I would be out. I would go into a deep sleep. And another thing is my wife does not snore. Or at least I've never heard her snore. But, you know, the mind does strange things in the absence of sound. And this is really what this is about. It's a combination of me losing my hearing, but it's also about the mind and how it makes up or tries to compensate for that lack of sound. For example, when I would look and I'd turn on that faucet, my mind hears the water coming out of that faucet. When I see Roxanne blow drying her hair, my mind hears that blow dryer. When I see somebody walking out the door and that door shuts, my mind hears that door shut. It's really incredible, how the mind wants to fill in the gaps. What does that mean, fill in the gaps? Well, let me give you an analogy. Not an analogy, this is directly from a normal hearing person has about 30,000 channels that go to the brain. so they can hear. With the cochlear implant, you have on average between 11 and 22 channels. That's a pretty big gap, but that's where the brain comes in. It's an amazing way that it fills in the holes. For example, I love listening to music. Today, I listen to music, whether it's classical music, 70s music, 80s music. I love it. It's because, in part, the brain recalls the music and lyrics, and it adds the fidelity and fills in that gap to a great extent. So I hear that music like I did many years ago. It's amazing. Today's music, not so much. But then my friends are all telling me, Chris, you're really not missing anything. So I leave it at that. But it's about how the brain fills in the gap. So a combination of a cochlear implant as a technology is amazing, but also your inclination of the mind, your attitude of being open to how you're going to be receiving all this information, not just from what you hear in the implant, but from your mind and your memory. You know, now that I'm deaf, I really realize that listening actually transcends sound. And in my view, being deaf is not a disability. It's just a different way to experience the world. You see, before I was deaf, I could hear, but now that I'm deaf, I listen. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the best of the Duke City Story Slam. For more information, or if you have a story you'd like to tell, visit our website at storytellersofnewmexico.org/Duke City Story Slam, or scan the QR code on your screen.